Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing you another pair of studio monitors. This time it's something I've been waiting for a long time, and these are the new Adam Audio A7V. So these are the successor to the world famous A7X, which I used from 2012 to 2019. So I'm very familiar with the Adam sound as well. Then I switched to another brand because I needed to upgrade, and now I received this demo pair. I've been using them for around almost 2 months now, and let's talk about it. So let's start by talking about the design. I really like the way the new line looks. It's all this dark gray look to it. It fits any studio. I think it looks very stylish, very polished, way better than the old ones. The layout is familiar if you know other monitors now. So we have the double bass reflex ports on the front, just like the old ones, a 7-inch bass driver, and their famous tweeter, the ribbon tweeter. So this is actually a 6.5-inch driver, but it's marketed as a 7 as usual. And this time they took it a step further for studio integration, because you can actually rotate the speakers to the side. You can use them horizontally. You just need to unscrew these 4 screws right here and rotate the tweeter itself, and you have a side-mounted speaker if your space requires you to do so. I tried it. I prefer the sound like this for obvious reasons. That would be a really long video to explain, but I think this is the correct way and the best way to use these speakers. Now about features, and this is why I'm calling these speakers very innovative. First of all, you have a DSP that other brands already have. You can control the bass, the desk filter, the presence, and the treble. You have several positions that you can choose from. Then you have a switch for 3 sound modes, which is the voicing. So the pure voicing is what they call the flat mode. So it tries to flatten the speaker as much as possible in order to be more accurate for mixing. The UNR is the classic Adam Audio sound. So if you're used to the older monitors, if you switch this to UNR, you will be right at home. And the external is something else. We'll talk just in a bit. You have the volume knob right here. It is dented on 0 dB. However, and this is something that I didn't like with the A7X as well, you just have a free scrolling wheel from -12 to 0 and to +12. So you can't really dial this too accurately, but that's just a minor complaint, because most people will probably just leave this at 0, and that's fine. Then you have balanced and unbalanced inputs, and you can select them right here, and the usual power switch and stuff. So as you've probably seen by now, you have a remote control port, and this is an Ethernet port, and that's the first part of the innovation from these speakers. If you have these speakers connected to your home network with Ethernet cables, you can control all of these parameters and more from a software that they call A-Control. It's still in beta, but it works pretty well. I've tried it and it works pretty well. So instead of having to go to the actual speakers to mess with the different settings to adapt these to your room, you can actually control everything from the software, and it's way easier while you're sitting in your sweet spot and checking for differences. In addition, you can not only control this, but you have a 6-band equalizer that you can mess around with to tailor the sound more to your room or to your taste. And the best part comes now. These speakers have a direct integration with Sound ID from Sonarworks. I'm a big fan of Sonarworks. I use it a lot, both in my headphones and my speakers, because it really makes the speakers perfect in the room. Basically, your room response. It's not perfect, of course, but for me, that I have a treated room, and then I go the extra mile with Sonarworks to have the sound really dialed in. This is absolutely perfect. However, as you know, if you use Sound ID, you need to have the software open all the time. That introduces a bit of latency. It's another thing to have in your chain. So what Adam did was to integrate it directly into the speakers. What does this mean? You can measure your room, you can get the calibration file, and through a control you can upload the calibration file into the speaker DSP directly. So then if you select external mode here, the speakers will actually use the reference curve that you measured in Sound ID. So you can close the software, you don't have the latency, you can use other sources instead of just your main computer, and have your exact sound with any source and without any extra software. That's amazing, and I'm really excited about that. This is probably big selling point for me at this moment. So yeah, that's A control and SonarWorks. I'm gonna turn this around again so you can see this beautiful speaker that I really think it's beautiful. I really like the design. So they also have a smaller version of this, the A4V. They have the A44V, which is horizontal, the A7V, which is the evolution of the old A77X. However, it's a totally new design because instead of just having two woofers and a tweeter, it incorporates a mid-range driver as well. And then you have the A8H. It's a three-way system, but with just one woofer instead of two, and it's a bigger one. I would really like to try those ones, the ones with the mid-range driver, because I think ribbon tweeters usually go way better when you have a mid-range driver dedicated to mid-range frequencies. So yeah, I would really like to try those ones as well. But now let's talk about the sound of the A7Vs. So how can I say this? They sound really good. There are a couple of little things, but in general they sound really, really good. So the tweeter is the start of the show, of course. They are exceptionally detailed. They are a bit sharper than other brands that you know that I use. They are a bit sharper, so you can actually hear the transients snap a bit more. They just hit harder. That's not a good or a bad thing. It's a matter of preference, I think. I like the way that these tweeters are presenting the sound, to be honest. I didn't get any ear fatigue. I think the tweeters are just on the right spot. However, even though I'm used to three-way monitors now, these have a really good mid-range for a two-way monitor. So I have never noticed a lack of presence in voices or instruments or anything in the mid-range. I think they could pop out just a little bit more, but I think they are just enough for mixing purposes. Then there's the bass frequencies. So of course you can't expect much from a 7-inch driver, in this case a 6.5-inch. However, they go fairly low for the size. But if you're serious about doing bass heavy music, you will need a subwoofer with this, because of course you need to work with the 30-40 Hertz region, and of course these speakers will not be able to provide that. But that's because of the size of the woofer and nothing else. Now, things I like less about the sound. So of course these speakers aren't perfect. My only little complaint is the lower mid range. So the lower mids on these speakers is good, but there's something with the texture of it that I can't really explain. It could be my room though, because my room isn't perfect as well. But I think there's just a little something that I think could have a different body to it. I'm not sure if I can explain it any better than that, because everyone hears differently. Now, regarding the detail retrieval, I think these are, as I said before, exceptionally detailed, especially in the high end. However, I've noticed that there's something about leaving the sweet spot that affects the sound a bit too much. So if I'm sitting on my sweet spot, everything is perfect, but if I move a bit to the left, I notice a bit of shifting. It's not too much, it's not a deal breaker, but since we're getting really technical here, yeah, that's something that I needed to talk about. And there's also just one more thing. On some speakers that I test, some of them have this really good quality that if you're listening to music, it seems like the speakers completely disappear. On these ones, I can not notice that as much. So they kind of disappear, but you also, if you look at them, you can notice that the sound is actually coming from a left and a right speaker. That's not a bad thing, but for listening to music, I would prefer if they disappeared a bit more into the soundscape. These are $699 speakers, so upper mid-range to high-end 2-way monitors. I've had a chance to compare them to my 3-way monitors and to my other 2-way monitors, which were the Neumann KH120s. And yeah, these are on par with the KH120s, but I preferred the high end on this way better than the Neumanns. The Neumanns always sounded a bit boxy to me. The low end is close, it's basically the same, but the mids and the high end I think are better on these ones, and they cost almost the same as the Neumanns, so right now I would choose these over the Neumanns. So in general, I'm really impressed with these speakers. I think they are really worth their price tag for the technology they have, and for just the way they sound. They are just easygoing speakers. You know what I mean? You can just turn them on, listen to music, play music. They are inspiring to make music on, which I think some manufacturers sometimes forget to do. And they are accurate enough to make critical mix decisions and translate well into any system. So I can fully recommend these speakers at the price tag they're in right now. If you manage to score a deal, even better, but at the price they are asking, these are a solid recommendation from me. And yep, I think that's it for the A7Vs. I hope you liked this review, opinion kind of thing. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to clarify you. And yep, I'll see you in the next video.